So Michael, today you're on the other side of the camera, and you said that a lot of times you'll begin some of your own documentary interviews with maybe just a very, simple, more small talk type of a question. What are some of the things that you do when you enter someone's home or office or world and you're about to interview them to put them at ease?
First thing I do is, while we're setting up, I never ask them anything I would ask them in the documentary, because you only get one shot. No one's ever gonna tell you the same thing they told you that you're talking in conversation about a second time. They're gonna make it much shorter and kind of, I already told you this, so I'm just gonna tell you that I already told you this answer. So usually it's talking about like, oh, that's a nice flower. Oh, I like your house, all that kind of stuff. And then when we actually start to do the interview, I call it like a roll into it, 5-10 minutes. So I'll ask them questions like, what do you do for fun? Oh, what's your job? All that kind of stuff. Even though I kind of already know all that information through the pre-interviews with the producers. And then it's really, you kind of have to judge the person. Like, a lot of people, sometimes they look like they want to tell you all, like, I want to tell you my story right away. Obviously, you can't do that when you're setting up, because, you walk in the door, they'll tell you their story before you start, the 10 minutes you have to do to set up or whatnot. So you have to judge whether they're that person that wants to tell you their story right away, and a lot of the interviewees it's a cathartic thing. So, or at least for the documentaries I do, which are usually much more personal in terms of what the actual subjects are talking about. Or they're the opposite, is a person who, obviously they somehow want to tell you their story. They're on camera, but they don't really want to tell you their story. So usually when it's that person, it's like the last thing I ask. In case of the adultery one, we have a lot of questions about people's countries, because it's people from different countries. So I was interviewing a woman from Japan, and they're kind of a close society. And I could tell like she didn't really want to talk about her specific adultery things, even though, we discussed it beforehand that we're going to talk about that. So a lot of questions. Well, what's it like in Japan? What are the sex clubs like in Japan? What's your family? What's their views on it? And then get to, okay, so, what's your story? So that's usually the two types of subjects that we encounter a lot, unless they're like university professors or whatever. And then you really don't have to do anything. It's just like, okay, tell me your specific field. What, and then they'll give you an hour lecture on, when I say lecture, I mean like their class lecture of the specific thing that they talk about. So that's basically it.
I was seeing that Morgan Spurlock said that, like, being a documentary filmmaker, we really have to form that bond of trust with your quote-unquote subject. It's like the highest form of trust in some sense, because they're going to reveal stuff on camera.
Yes. Yeah, there's an art to building trust with subjects, especially in my case. There's two types of documentaries. There's a documentary where you follow the subject around for years, and then there's the type of documentary which I do a lot of, where you talk to the person on the phone for 15 minutes, and the producers really kind of do that, and then you only have an hour to really build trust. A lot of ways that I do that is kind of make the questions more and more personal as we go along. So when we're starting the documentary, it's, oh, hey, nice place, and oh, what do you do for fun? And then, oh, so what's your childhood like? What dreams and goals do you have? Do you feel like you've accomplished this? And a lot of these questions aren't ever going to be in the movie, but it's really to get to a non-rehearsed answer when I ask them, hey, what's your story about adultery, or whatever the documentary is about.
Do you ever use self-disclosure as a way, because I know therapists will do that sometimes when they feel that a client is maybe not saying something that's on their mind, and then they use their own self-disclosure, and then the person goes, okay, well, they've told me something about them, then I guess I should.
Yeah, a lot of rapport. I use a lot of self-disclosure, a lot of rapport building, which is it's a difficult thing, especially for me being a younger man when I'm interviewing a 60-year-old person from the Middle East. So I don't necessarily have a lot in common with them. I do a lot of disclosure and rapport in the kind of initial walking in stage of the interview of even setting up of, oh, your house is nice. Oh yeah. Oh, I live in that neighborhood. You live over there. Even though it's kind of a superficial connection, at least it's some sort of connection. Yeah, and a lot of it is the subjects of the documentary. If they like you, they'll start telling you stuff. And so that's kind of the goal, is to get them to like me, which, you know, it occurs a lot, and then sometimes it doesn't occur, and that's why you interview more people than you need for your documentary.
How can you tell when it's not working?
I mean, you can obviously tell when it's not, when they're on camera and you interview somebody. So what's your story about committing adultery? Since that's kind of the doc I've been doing. They'll say, oh yeah, well, I met this woman and I liked her and she was attractive, and, you know, we committed adultery. You know, it would be a really short kind of answer. It's an answer you would give a stranger. It would probably be the way to say that, as opposed to a friend. So you want to become their friend as quickly as possible. And, you know, I would definitely, there's tons of business books on like how to build rapport, and it's all meant to like sell business, but a lot of that works really well with, you know, the documentary film kind of interviewing, because you're only going to have that really short interaction with people, and you're basically never going to see them again other than, you know, premieres or whatever. So those are a lot of good places to kind of find that information. And it's also very, I would say the only difference between that is, you know, you want to go very personal with their personality, as opposed to stay on topics of the day kind of topics. You know, you want to build rapport through very personal and deep stories, and what, you know, like I said, what are your goals? What's your childhood like? All that kind of stuff over, no, the weather today is great, you know, that kind of stuff.